Well, hello everyone and welcome. My name is Sharon Bonney. I'm the CEO for the Coalition on Adult Basic Education, and I am delighted to welcome you to Teacher Tuesday, adjusting to the change as the new normal. This is part of our National Adult Ed and Family Literacy Week programming, and we are really excited to get started. So first I would just say, we'd love for you to introduce yourself, put your name and where you're from in the chat box. Any questions that you have, just put them in the Q&A as we go along. So with that, I would like to introduce you to our distinguished panel here. I'm going to actually read this to make sure that I don't miss anything. I'm going to start out with Arnold here. Arnold Montiel, age 58, is a current adult learner at Pima Community College. After a family tragedy struck Arnold's life when he was in the 10th grade, he had to drop out of high school. For years, he worked in the construction trade where 2 work accidents took a toll on his back. He started to work for a print shop, but still ended up needing double back surgery. While laying there in the hospital bed, he was concerned that he would not be able to return to his current profession, so he decided that was the time to obtain his GED. To date, he has 2 more tests to pass, which are math and science, and he has participated in the Adult Ed Inspirational Poster Project. He willfully tells his story in order to inspire other adults who are returning to school, and he will be part of the next local ambassador training. After obtaining his GED, he is planning to enroll at Pima within the social services field. So welcome, Arnold. We're delighted you're here with us today. Next, we have Consuelo Carrillo. She has her bachelor's degree in management information systems, and she is a former AmeriCorps member who has volunteered for 2 years in the family literacy program. She's been an ABE instructor for the last 10 years and recently started as an instructional math coach, facilitator, and TEALS instructor. Consuelo was also recently recognized on the national level as COABE's Distinguished 2021 Teacher of the Year winner. Welcome, Consuelo. As well, we have Stephenie Rittberger. She is the Region 5 COABE board member, who's also serving as the administrator, teacher, and coordinator for the adult education service there at Career Learning Center of the Black Hills, where she has worked for 20 years. In 2008, she was the Adult Educator of the Year for South Dakota Association of Adult and Lifelong Learning. And Mrs. Rittberger has participated in the state development of an initiative to improve the delivery of reading instruction across South Dakota. She's also assisted in the development and implementation of college and career readiness standards for adult education programs at the state level. She recently worked on a project to improve and deliver more career pathways for students focusing on transition to post-secondary education and ensuring stackable credentials for students exiting the program. And she was the project finalist in the Minds That Move Us national initiative. So welcome, Stephenie. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. So we're going to jump right in and get started. I asked these individuals to participate in this panel because we were very curious to hear how the folks in the field were adjusting to this new normal and all the change that was taking place. So Consuelo, I'm going to start with you. Please tell me about some of the challenges that you've faced due to the pandemic over the last year and a half. You just want to unmute yourself.
Hello, everyone. One of the challenge was and changes in my life was going virtual. It was something new for me and I guess for all teachers in this country, right? But connectivity was a big challenge. Like most teachers in our program, I was not ready to teach virtually and I didn't have the resources. At the beginning, my internet connection was basic, but because my children were also taking virtual classes, I had to upgrade my internet service. I learned from some instructors and learners that they were having a lot of issues connecting virtually from their homes. So the college set up a space in their parking lot for people to access internet connection. And I know that some colleagues were teaching their classes from their car in their parking lot, where they had a most stable connection. And teaching virtually was a challenge because we didn't have the digital literacy skills to start. We had to learn quickly and spend a lot of time researching for the tools to use. I remember that I started teaching my virtual classes in Bongo That's the platform that the college had in our school. And I remember that when we were in class, a lot of students were having issues to connect because the platform required stronger internet connections from our learners. When the internet connection was poor, it didn't allow access to the class. And this issue was a barrier that some learners couldn't overcome. They just stopped trying. And when we realized these requirements, we look for solutions. And one of those solutions is that the college got a Zoom license for all instructors that wanted. Another challenge was communication with our learners. That was a problem because we were working from home. So we were creative and thought outside of the box to find efficient ways to communicate with our learners that had technical issues to attend our classes. And for that, we installed apps to text and call our learners from our personal devices. We're not compromising our privacy. I know that devices were limited in our learners' household because adults and children were taking virtual classes. We help learners to get access to laptops or hotspots for them to use. And same thing, the college provide those devices. What we are experiencing lately is the Zoom fatigue, and we are still looking for strategies to help our learners to keep them healthy, focused, and engaged. Those are a few of the challenges that I experienced and I noticed in our learners too.
Thank you, Consuelo. And I imagine this was something that was across the board felt by a lot of teachers during the pandemic. Arnold, I would love to hear from you. Tell me about some of the challenges you faced due to the pandemic over the last year and a half. And also, if you could also share with me the ways that you had to go that extra mile to really address those challenges.
It got pretty difficult in the beginning because I was I didn't have very much computer skills, and so I had like 2 months of in-class learning where we where I got a chance to get rid of some of those jitters and learn a little bit of my laptop. And then the pandemic hit, and I kind of thought that that was going to be the end of my educational endeavor, but it wasn't. Pima Community College Adult Learners, they jumped in and they provided us with laptops. I had purchased one, and I'm glad because I needed to learn how to use one before I was even provided with one. And it became very difficult because I had to learn right away. I had to learn how to Zoom. I had to learn how to split screens and do stuff like that, which I'm still trying to learn. And it got real difficult. I had gotten used to going to in-class. It was a learning center, and we got to interact with the educators and with the fellow students because a lot of my fellow students helped me learn how to navigate my computer and helped me with some of the work that we were doing. So it was a big crunch when I lost all that. I got used to it pretty quickly because my instructors jumped right in there, and they kind of made Zoom classes very understandable. As I was going along, they were kind of learning with me, and they made it very clear to me too that they weren't all that savvy about computers and the way we were learning, but we all learned together. And I just feel it was very difficult, but in another sense, I feel that it was very worth it because we had to learn in the most challenging circumstances, and we kind of towed the line, and we kind of became better because of it. And I just feel that even though it was uncomfortable, I'm kind of glad I was thrust into it like that because it sure has helped me a lot, even to have the courage to join these kind of Zooms and these kind of presentations. It's just it's a whole new world for me, and I love it.
Excellent. Thank you, Arnold. Appreciate your perspective. Thank you. Stephenie, I would love to hear from you as well. Tell me about the challenges you faced due to the pandemic, as well as the sorts of things that you implemented to go that extra mile for your adult learners so they could receive instruction.
Sure. I just want to tag on really essentially to what Consuelo said, because it's really very similar across the board, I think. I learned 5 big lessons, and the lessons were that barriers to education and employment just have to be addressed no matter what. 95% of our students were self-identified being below the national poverty line when they would come into our classes. And a lot of 2-income households became 1 income, and parents were staying home and watching and teaching the kids. And so what was happening is that people still needed transportation, childcare, and housing to focus their attention on their studies. No matter what, those had to be addressed. And then just students really had to have consistency to be able to study without interruption in order to make progress. And so I think that was one big lesson learned. The second lesson is online learning is here to stay. And I called 80 people in the first week that we were shut down, and 65 students were using public access Wi-Fi and only had a cell phone. So of 80 calls, 65 people did not have proper access to really learn. And it made us recognize that we had to change things quickly. And I'll just say teachers were willing to put time and effort in the craziest ways in order to kind of fit that gap. So students had to gain digital literacy skills and learn multiple platforms really quickly. And they had to decipher what was expected when new ideas would come up. And then we had the statewide Family Engagement Center that hit the ground running, and they produced something called the Daily Learning Digest, and they also produced a cafe, conversation cafe for the parents and for educators. And it was a nice place where people could share their frustrations and get some comments, get some help doing things. And I thought that was really helpful. And I just think it's online learning is here to stay no matter what we do. And then I think another lesson that I really learned is every bit of content that we teach needs to have relevance to the students. If it doesn't have relevance, they aren't going to put their time, energy, and all of their effort into learning it. So, we invested in teaching skills that matter, where we're really looking at multiple concepts and critical thinking skills in one lesson so that they get the most amount of information they can get in the most concerted amount of time. And then just students, I think, have to be able to gain skills that are useful in job settings and in their life. And that connection has to be clear for them. So you have to be saying things like algebra is important in this case to you because, and it has to be so clear to them that it matters. And then the fourth lesson I learned is team matters. We cannot do this work alone. So we had 88 community service organizations that provided community supports. The community organization stepped up and gave us grant opportunities to fill in some of the money issues that we had and some of the connectivity and device issues that we were dealing with. And then just, I think trauma-informed practice and trauma-informed care was imperative because people's mental health took a toll. It took a toll to be home all the time, to be doing all these things. And we had great partners in this, the Department of Labor and Regulation and the Statewide Family Engagement Center and just so many others that we couldn't have done the work alone. And then I think the last one is that success is a product of hard work and perseverance. So if the students are engaged, they're going to succeed. If they can earn credentials online, like the IBM Skills Build, or if they can, if we can still get them connected to some maybe pre-medical so that they're ready to take that paramedic EMT, or if they can, take a single fire service class, they're much more likely to make an educational functioning level gain, and they're much more likely to succeed And then I just think flexibility, 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 because my teachers, students could absolutely not take the classes when at the times that we could provide them typically, because their kids were at home and they were using all the broadband. And so my teachers were teaching class from 7 to 8 in the morning, and then from 4 to 5, 5 to 6, 6 to 7, 7 to 8, and 8 to 9. And learners were willing to come online at that time. So it taught me a great lesson in just how much you can expect from a teacher when they're really bought into loving the students as well. And so I just have to say kudos to those teachers who provided all this. And it's not in my program, that's across the board. I've heard it from all over the place, all over the place. So I think those are my lessons learned. And one of the big lessons learned is tech happens all the time. Even we thought we had a big digital breakthrough, and some of the apartment buildings in Rapid City got public access Wi-Fi, which really helped. And then what happened was we had students that were too close to each other, essentially an apartment sharing walls. And then there was so much feedback, we still couldn't get on, or I couldn't have them in the same breakout sessions, or just little things that you really have to think through when you're on new platforms and teaching in ways that you didn't expect.
And Stephenie, those are all such great points. I think one of the other issues you and I had discussed, besides the fact that you were working incredible hours and your entire team was available at a lot of different hours of day and night, was that you had received some funding, but it had to be spent by a certain time. And this was funding through, if I recall correctly, the CARES Act funding, which was wonderful, given through the governor's office. And yet there was very limited amount of time and you had to use that, but all the devices were on back order, which made that difficult, right? As I recall.
Yeah. And, we had to switch what we were doing even at the end on that, because some of the things that were really on the wish list that would have been very, very helpful, we had to switch what we could order. We had to, it was just a lot of work, and it was kind of crazy to try to figure out the logistics and navigating systems. So I think if it's crazy for me to navigate a system, what is it like for the students to have to navigate that system? And I'll be the first to say, teachers, I heard a lot from some rural teachers, students, they can't even buy enough broadband to attend classes. And so, we had teachers who were photocopying packets and hand delivering them in the parking lot through the window with gloves and masks. And I thought, wow, that's going an extra mile to stand out there and do that. So I will just say teachers across the field have heartened me totally. And it just makes you really want to see everything go well into the future. But there are things that keep me up at night, because I know it's going to take a lot to be able to provide professional development for our teachers to keep up with digital changes. I know that we're going to have to cross-train people, because a lot of people don't even know what I do every day. So within my own staff, I'm going to have to cross-train somebody, because if I was sick or I got hurt, what happens? So those things are still things that we're addressing, and those are things that are really relevant to, I think, teachers across the entire field.
Exactly, and administrators and adult learners. Yes, I agree. Thank you, Stephenie. Thank you so much. Arnold, I see your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to touch up on something that Stephenie said about being engaged. Very early in the program, I was very intimidated because it was 42 years since I'd been in the classroom the last time. And I found that and Laura Porfirio from the Pima College Center there, she got me engaged early in panels and in conversations about race and different kind of panels. And it really has helped me, and it has kept me in the game, because I don't know if I could have stayed in the game, especially when the pandemic hit. It got really a little frustrating. So I think being engaged with all these other different little activities that I was doing, it just kept me in the game. And I think that was very important.
That's great. Yes. Yes, well, that's a great tip. So that was one of the questions we were gonna, or one of the things we were going to discuss. Do you have any advice or tips to share with other teachers or learners? So Arnold, thank you for that tip. Consuelo, do you have any advice or tips that you'd like to share with teachers or learners?
Yes. Well, something that helped me a lot to grow as a teacher, especially in the last year, besides attending tons of webinars, and it was learning from other educators, their best practices and what they have been using. But something that we did in our program was having weekly small group meetings with my colleagues. And what we were doing is we were sharing what we learned and then what we practiced in our classroom, what was useful, what wasn't. And moreover, we share our frustrations and struggle. And just by listening to them, I learned a lot. In addition to that, we have also weekly meetings with our support staff, the manager, and the student success coaches, where we communicate or get information about our learners' needs and their challenges. And we create a plan to support them with resources. And then, well, we were sharing about what their needs were, where to meet them, and how to help them. And another change that our program did was creating those job positions, the student success coaches. There were liaisons between the instructors and the students, and also the community, because they were gathering all the resources that were getting available and connecting with the students when we couldn't, because we have so many students. So we were doing our best to connect with them one-on-one, but we needed more personnel for that. So that was, I think, some of the keys that help us to move on into this new normal. That's what we call it. And also our chancellor called it that. So I don't think we're gonna go back exactly as we were before, because this is opportunities that were open, and we have been learning, like even for some learners, this is a way that they can learn, or the possibilities that they have to continue their education, because not everybody is ready to go back to a classroom. So we are opening new high flex classroom where some students gonna be in person, others gonna be joining virtually. So that's something that we are exploring and are ready to start this year.
Great, thank you, Consuelo. That sort of fits in well with a question that just came in from one of our attendees here, asking about, and maybe it's good to address this to either Consuelo or Stephenie, talking about teacher compensation. I mean, so many of our teachers are already cobbling together multiple jobs as it is, and now you add on top of this, okay, you need to learn this in a new setting and how to do this hyperflex teaching, and you know, you need to work more hours. Is it something that you saw there at your local program as well?
I'll take that. And yeah, I saw the question come in as well. And, you know, part-time versus full-time staff across South Dakota, Wyoming, North Dakota, a lot of our region, there are a lot of part-time instructors, and they're working other gigs. I mean, they're doing other things as well. So it did make it exceedingly hard, and some of them did leave, and some left for better opportunities or different opportunities, and you can't take away their chances to do something new or different. But at the same time, you want to retain that expertise and that experience. And so, you know, I do think that that's a conversation that's going to need to take place in every state with every teacher and every administrator and everyone at a state level, everyone at a national level, because If we don't keep up with those wages, we will lose our teachers to the K-12 system. We'll lose our teachers to the Department of Labor, who can pay more. We'll lose our teachers, and they're essentially coming pre-trained. And so lucky those other organizations who steal them away.
Yes, well said. Well said. I've often, when I've spoken with legislators, talked about this very issue and the fact that many times our teachers take a pay cut to be in our profession as it is. So they really do have a heart for the adult learner, which is wonderful. You know, you want that, you want the teacher that's what they're all about, is the adult learner, but to have to take a pay cut to be in the profession, and then on top of it, oh, here's all these additional, we need you to work additional hours, we need you to learn, you know, something completely different as well. I just feel like that's quite a bit to ask. So in honor of Teacher Tuesday, I'm so glad that one of our attendees wrote in about that. So, you know, as we think about the funding of technology that's needed to keep up with the professional development that goes into all of this, and as we think about what adult educators will need moving forward to support these efforts, do any of you have thoughts you'd like to share about that specific topic? The funding of technology and for the professional development, as well as the need for supports along the way for teachers and adult learners.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. Our professional development changed a little bit. Like we transitioned from being in person to being virtual, and that opened a room to join other programs also. Like here at PIMA, before we were just local, but because we went to virtual, other programs from around the state were able to join us once a month. As I said that we also have those weekly meetings, and our program has full-time and part-time instructors, and the part-times got paid for all the professional developments that they do. So it was an opportunity for them to extend their knowledge and to share, and also got paid for their time, because I'm a full-time and I spend a lot of time. So I can imagine, and I know that part-timers also did spend a lot of time learning those new technology. So it's good that more pay time are open for those instructors. And we are doing some things right now that they got paid for, but it will be great if as we got more trainings, especially like with HighFlex, it needs a lot of training. So it would be great if we have more funds for that, so that way more teachers are open for those opportunities, and opening more full-time positions. That would be an awesome thing for those teachers that are already doing a lot of things and learning the new technology. So if we can get support of that, that would be amazing.
Great. And a little bit later on, in just a couple of minutes, we're going to ask those who are here with us and those who will watch this later if they'll participate in our Twitter storm. This is a way that we're going to try to reach out to legislators to ask for the funding. So thank you for bringing that up, Consuelo. Arnold or Stephenie, do you have anything before we go any further? Anything you'd like to contribute on that topic?
Yes, I would like to add, I just found it kind of appalling that during this pandemic, and sometimes during the heaviest part of it, some governors were withholding money that was very valuable. At the same time, they were demanding that we open these schools up and get the children back in the classroom, or even in university and colleges. And I just found it appalling that some governors were withholding money because some school district wanted to not impose a mask mandate, but to set a mask mandate for the safety of their children and everything. And some of these governors were actually going as far as to threaten some of these administrators and educators with withholding their pay. And if the school district did not abide by these mask mandate laws, these anti-mask mandate laws that the governor had imposed, then he would threaten to withhold money to that school district. And I find that it's kind of you're kind of working against yourself, because you want these schools to open, but you're still withholding the money that they need to mitigating things, and especially for infrastructure like air conditioners and even testing and actual vaccines. I think it was working against themselves by doing this. And I think a lot of people actually suffered because of this, because it was a time when some of these educators and students really needed this funding. And still it sits in state coffers in some states. And I think there should be a way to get this to the educators and get this to the colleges and the school districts, so they can make these steps and make schools safe for the people to return. All of us, the educators and the learners, no matter what age they are or what race they are.
And Arnold, I would second what you're saying in that I specifically know of a state where the funding's been tied up so much that there's been multiple closures. It's not over masks. It's just that it's been tied up. And we're going to be honoring a congressman on Friday who fought hard against that, trying to open up the coffers so that the funding would be sent to the adult ed programs in that state. So we do have legislators that really are working hard on this specific area about, the funding being released. We know that there's CARES Act funding, there's the American Rescue Plan funding, and that's one of the things that we at COABE have been really working hard with the field to try to raise our voice. We're hoping that we will get additional funding to help offset all these expenses that we've been talking about here, needing more teachers, needing PPE, needing devices, needing Wi-Fi, right? But if we get the funding, but it sits there at the state level and it's not, passed on down, then that's a concern too. So just know that I agree with you 100%. The field needs the funding. It needs to make its way to the local level. Definitely. Stephenie, yes, go ahead.
Well, one thing I think I'd be remiss to not bring up is that I do think the on-site in-person learning is also very, very important. And I have so many students who are grateful that centers are opening and that they can come in. They need a concerted, quiet place where they can focus some attention. And at home, they weren't maybe getting that same ability because their attention is being drawn in multiple areas. And so they're also very grateful for that connection to people. And I've also heard a lot about the fact that mentorship, when you're face to face and look somebody in the eye and you know that they have a heart for you, there's a difference in how that spills out. And so I just want to say that I think that it's not just online. We really have to be paying attention to what's happening in our centers.
Yes, I agree. So important. I mean, so many times we hear from the adult learner, what keeps them coming back to class, knowing that they have that community of adult learners and also the teachers and administrators that care so much for them. This is what we hear often. So thank you for those points. So before we go any further, does anybody have any last thoughts? Arnold, Consuelo, or Stephenie? I feel that it's been a really rich discussion. I did want to just mention that we have a survey that we're going to ask you all to complete. It's very quick, very short. This is brought to you compliments of one of our partners and vendors, Essential Education. The idea behind this is that it takes just maybe 2 minutes to fill out, but it will give COABE sort of the impetus on which webinars we should be planning so that we can better support teachers through this great time of change. I would be remiss to not mention that when the pandemic first hit, we at COABE started putting on webinars. We put on a number of webinars that would have, typically a webinar would have about 300 people on. We saw the numbers shoot up to 1,000, 1,500. We even had one that had over 2,000 on it because teachers were thirsty for information and for support. So we've been working away at this topic for some time, since the pandemic, but we have the specific survey that I believe Stephenie has put into the chat box. And we just ask you to take a minute or so to complete that. You can even do that now if you'd like. And that will help us so that as we're thinking about future programming, we can provide more support. There will be big giveaways, compliments of Essential Education. There will be Amazon gift cards. There will be certificate to attend the COABE conference. We will also be looking for, if you're interested in presenting, that you will also be compensated, and that is also compliments of essential education. So I just want to thank them and give a shout out for their support of the field of adult education during this time. As you're completing that survey, I'll just mention that later today at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, we have our Legislative Champion Awards event. And, you know, I personally just want to say a few things about our legislators. Some of them are just working so hard to bring the funding and visibility to the field. And for example, one of the legislators we're going to be honoring today is in Consuelo and Arnold's state there, Raul Grijalva. He's the recipient of the Champion for Adult Education Legislative Leadership Award. So we're super excited about that. We'll be honoring him for his wonderful work, as well as Mayor Lori Bagwell of Carson City, Nevada. So please tune in at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. That will be led by our Public Policy Chair and President-elect, Regina Soup. And then later on in the day at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, we wanted to let you all know how this Move Ahead with Adult Ed Google ad campaign was going. We have had over 2,000 local programs join the Move Ahead with Adult Ed campaign, which has resulted in thousands of adult learners joining on to local programs. But you're going to hear a lot more than just that. So we hope that you'll join us later today at 2 Eastern Standard. I would not want to leave this session without encouraging you all to contact your legislators. You can tag them with one click. Stephenie is putting the link in the chat box as well. This is a great way to contact your legislators. It's editable. You can change the wording. It doesn't have to be what you see when you click on that. So you can edit it if you'd like to do so, but then it'll send to all of your legislators. We're talking mayors, governors, members of Congress. So it's a great way to really raise the visibility to come together as a field for funding. And speaking of social media, we are going to be on social media all week long. I have been so impressed with our state advocate fellows who have just been doing a fantastic job out there, really raising the visibility of the work that we're doing. I love the fact that 74% of our adult learners are people of color. I know that there are many other wonderful reasons why we want to support adult education and why we need the funding. So if you're on social media, get out there and help us. There's the hashtag adult or AEFL Week 2021. Tomorrow is our Working Wednesday. We've got our winners lineup at 11 Eastern Standard Time, our Legislative Leadership Awards at 1 Eastern Standard Time, and then Intersect 2021 launch. I want to mention this because you're going to hear from Department of Commerce on a special initiative, $500 million that is going to be made available to the field. They can apply for funding. So you want to join us for that. There's a lot going on all week long. There's programming every single day. We'll be releasing short videos that have come in for our Voices from the Field initiative where our members have sent in the reasons why they love adult education and why they do what they do. So you'll just want to catch us on social media and on our website. Before I end, I just want to offer one last time for our panelists. Do you have anything you'd like to say before we close it up?
I would like to just say thank you very much for having me. It's been a great opportunity and I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. And it was nice meeting all of you.
Such a pleasure. Thank you, Arnold.
Thank you everyone for attending this webinar, and thank you for the opportunity to speak up and raise our voices for other instructors and for the support that we all need, our learners and also the support staff and instructors. Thank you.
I just say happy Adult Education and Family Literacy Week, and thank you for the work that's done in the field, not just across the board. Thank you to everybody who puts their time and energy into all of the students that benefit.
Yes, I would second that, Stephenie. And I just want to say in honor of Teacher Tuesday, teachers are making such a difference. Keep up the great work. We'll do what we can to support you, but you guys are the heroes and the adult learners, of course, too. So thank you all. Thank you for participating, and we'll see you throughout the rest of the week. Take care.